different reasons. You think of Pragg, and he's a little bit untested in this format. We saw Vincent come in and do amazingly well, but Pragg is someone that I think the expectations are almost a little bit higher. This is a player that, at his best can take out Magnus Carlsen over a long match. I'm excited to see just how dynamic these games are going to be, because I feel that we have a contrast of styles here, Danny, and who is going to win the battle of getting their position.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like that early on, we're already seeing the players pause as far as thinking about the type of position they want to get. You and I often say that the longer time control, regardless of the results themselves, which do matter, of course, in 5 minutes, but it's often revealing in terms of maybe where the match is going to go as the gloves come off in the 3 minute and the 1 minute. What openings did the players bring to the table? Are they going to try to mix it up and surprise their opponent? Are they going to stick to mainline theory? We have an odd and unique RUY LOPEZ development here already, Amon, with the knights on e7 and c6, and white playing this funny a3 move rather than more traditional main lines. So,
yeah, the knights going to c6 and e7 usually, for good reason, indicates that the bishop on f8 would want to make it to the g7 square. But usually what happens when the knight goes to e7 instead of f6 is white actually plays d4, either directly or plays c3 and d4. So it's actually a little bit curious that Fabi has gone for a bit of a different setup. I don't imagine that d4 is the absolute priority. He's waiting to see more information, and currently knight g5 is a big time threat.
Well, now he goes back into d4, so we're getting kind of a transposition to the main lines. And as you said, rather than c3 with d4, a3 was played as a means to make sure that this bishop will have escape in case black wanted a knight a5 idea or something. But anyway, the moves are already happening so fast, and Fabi already getting a little bit of an edge according to the computer with the knight on f5 that I really like here. The bishop pair is about to be won for white.
Yeah, knight f5 makes good sense here. If the pawn takes back and the knight, let's say on g6, has to move to e5, you have another f pawn that can move forward to f4, and there could be some big problems there. So this knight on g6, not a good piece, and the top players know how to play against these knights. So let's see if Fabi can do that here.
Yeah, he gets castled rather than taking the dark square bishop. Maybe knows he can get the bishop pair anytime. Note that even if the bishop moves, maybe the other knight pops into d5. So what's funny about this is black, I guess, has to just decide which bishop you want to part ways with. Giving up the light square bishop has long-term consequences, but the dark square bishop might be missed as well. So still very solid, but I guess I'm just liking I'm biased to the bishop pair right now, and we'll see if Fabi takes it before it can go to f8 now.
Yeah, the thing is, that's not the bishop that you actually want. So, you want the bishop pair, but you'd prefer to win the light square bishop. And here, the bishop going to f8, it wasn't going to be a great piece anyway. So it's one of those things that, as Fabi, you definitely do it. I agree with you, Danny. You take it before it goes back. But at the same time, you kind of wish that you had won the other piece. But, this being said, you can still continue. Bishop e3, we might see something solid like pawn to h3, pawn to f3, queen d2, and bring the rook on a1 over into the middle.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I wonder if now there's a knight d5 idea at some point, e4 and c7, but f4 played. Fabi playing so fast here. Amon, do you get the feeling I'm getting here? This might be a little bit of prep here for Fabiano, because this is a significant advantage for white with the bishop pair, and a very aggressive approach to play if you're not confident that it's good. So I'm smelling a little bit of a rat here if I'm Pragg, that maybe I got myself in a bit of trouble in terms of the opening prep.
Well, I think I agree in general, but the other thing I'll say about this position is, prep or not, if I'm looking at Pragg's position and I'm trying to imagine what moves to expect, there's no d5, there's no f5, the knights can't use the e5 square, the knight on c6 can't really go anywhere. I'm not that concerned about a lot of the potential moves here, so it looks safe.
Yeah. Okay, so bishop e6 played, and Fabi's slowing down maybe just for the first time. Does he want to put a piece on d5 in order to stop bishop takes b3? He could even take on e6 Amon, because note that the queen can't take, right? Because f5 would win a piece. So you could take. Okay, he plays f5. Is he going to take on g6? Oh, no, he doesn't. Okay, I thought maybe there was a weird intermezzo kind of thing. Ah, there we go. That's the idea. f6. What a move.
Yeah, he's just going straight for it. We've got knight d5 coming in next if the pawn captures on f6, which is the obvious, but obviously this queen is going to move. Yeah, there we go. Queen e6. And this is all Fabiano so far. The only reason that you play a move like f5, Danny, is because of something concrete like what we're seeing. You're giving up the e5 square, but he's bringing the knight in. He can take on g7 and disrupt the position a little bit. So clearly in Fabi's favor. And I am wondering, is he going to take before the move g6 gets played in response?
Agreed. And I love your call out that the only reason you would play f5 is because of something concrete, because it really is good to note that e5 is the one really good thing Pragg has going for his position right now. That is a dominant square for either pony that occupies it. So Fabi will need to get an attack to kind of justify not just the e5 square, but the weak e pawn that is now backward. So I guess I'm pointing that out just to make sure it's not all one-sided here. Yes, white has pressure. The computer likes white. But there are long-term factors that black has with the square, the weak pawn, maybe the king. So those are things to keep in mind.
Yeah, and if we're kind of going for a think here, and I'm wondering what moves we could be considering. Queen to h5. I'm almost wondering if black is going to try to trade queens themselves with like queen g4, for example. It really looks like pawn takes on g7 is the right move here, just to get that exchange in.
Yeah, agreed. He's taking time, which is a little interesting because we got a straightforward idea here. What else could it be thinking about besides taking on g7?
Yeah, queen h5,
H5?
bishop g5.
Okay.
Yeah, even just a normal move. Like there really isn't a threat for black, but I had the impression that g6 by black was something you didn't necessarily want to allow.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, queen h5 was interesting, and certainly g6 might have led to checkmate ideas. But either way, we're here. Fabi does eventually take after spending some time. Black's king is open. Here comes rook to h4 and queen h5 an old-fashioned way, right? Go for checkmate.
Yep.
Computer has an only move. That's not me. No hands. A blue arrow means white has to play this move to maintain the advantage. What a weird move to retreat.
The knight is the best piece for Fabi in this position. The knight on d5 is doing everything. It's tying the rook down to the c7 pawn. It's covering some key squares on e7 and f6. It's basically tying the entire knight on d7 down. So the right idea, knight e7, to remove it. And Fabi, you have to remember, Danny, this is a game of chess. It's not just an attack here. You're not developed at all on the queen side. So be careful with trading off all these pieces, because Pragg is just going to emerge with a fine position.
Well, and look, that's exactly what happened. Fabi does not find the only move for the computer, and the things I was highlighting earlier are coming back. The e-pawn is weak. Black's knight is actually a very good piece with lots of different good squares, particularly e5. By the way, the b-pawns, stink over here. So there's actually there's a reason you saw that eval bar completely switch when Fabi didn't find that move, because Black's long-term advantages are actually killer here for white.
Not to mention the e-pawn looks like it's disappearing, and it'll get supported so nicely by d5. So honestly, the position is just flipping here. That's the reality, Danny.
Complete turnaround. So interesting, because Fabi went from having a huge edge on the board and a huge edge on the clock. I was calling for the thought that maybe this was prep, but the position completely turns around with one bad move, and I think Pragg is going to go on to win the first game as black. I mean, this is actually very quickly one of those positions that is super hard to see how black loses. Black is up a pawn. These pawns are no good. The king is actually perfectly safe, guarded by the white pawn in front of it.
And the time, 26 seconds for Fabi. It's completely swapped from, 4 minutes he had, and Pragg's time was ticking down. Instead, now Fabi has a lot to be nervous about, and we're going to maybe get to see our first glimpse at how both of the players kind of handle a time pressure situation. But this is not looking good for Fabi anymore.
Not at all. And yeah, so it's always funny when we talk about the first time scramble. Who's going to show that their nerves are there today? Not always indicative of how the whole match will go when we get to faster time controls, but it can be. So we'll see how Fabi deals with being way down on the clock, and how Pragg deals with it if he also gets under a minute here.
Yeah, either f5 or d5 both look possible to support this knight. You definitely don't want to take on d4 and lose the knight on e4, so we see the full support there. And bishop f6 played, which is trickier than bishop c3, where maybe in the future you're worried about d4 shutting your bishop out.
Yeah. Okay, well, again, just looking at the chess, we love the knight if we're Prog. Remember, black is up a pawn, but Fabi keeping the pressure. Okay, he's going to try to mix it up. This is the right thing to do. Forget what the computer says, because you got to just make the game complicated if you're losing and down on time. Again, best play, I think that Prog wins this game, but Fabi's going to try to mix it up.
There's a big idea. Knight takes on f6, rook takes, and queen e3 is a great way to eliminate the queens here, and it's been played on the board. The rook c7 move was to guard the f7 pawn in order to make this happen, and this is all Prog.
Yeah. Force lines, get the queens off the board. You can say goodbye to any checkmate ideas you had. By the way, black will just take this pawn in a moment.
Exactly. Yeah, and the pawns on the queen side are weak. There's a passed pawn in the center of the board, so it's not completely over, but it's well on its way.
Yeah, Prog takes, put the rook behind the pawn, or go for this, actually, rook c2. Both are probably good. Okay, he decides to keep the pawn.
Yeah, rook behind the passed pawn. It's a good principle to follow here, and he's just going to activate his king. Now the rook is free again, so the rook can move to c7 to g7 and activate that way. Oh, f4 maybe?
I was going to say f4, and if takes d4, yeah.
I love
that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Prog wants something else. Yeah, f4 would have been a funny little way there.
King d4 is coming, and rook h6. This is not that easy anymore.
What? Wow. This is just completely turned around. Prog missed this idea of f4 we were calling for, and now we're in a rook ending where the old adage might prove true. All rook endings are drawn. That's not what Prog wanted at all.
No. He's going to grab an extra pawn here, but okay. This looks like a position that I would assume black would find a way to win in a blitz game, Danny. I'm not going to lie, but h4, preventing king g5 is key.
Yeah. Well, by the way, speaking of king g5, those who saw the eval bar going, to give an answer to that, black actually could have played king g5 instead of b4, I think. Or no, that was after h4. The rook ending was just misplayed there, honestly, by both players a little bit, but ultimately maybe justice was served with a draw here. What a